Hello again, and welcome back to Scott's Big Mouth Podcast, a subsidiary arm of Scott Reviews Things on YouTube. This podcast is available on Apple iTunes. It's available wherever you get your podcasts from. It's also available on YouTube and is part of the Scott Reviews Things channel. Firstly, I want to apologise. Actually, apologise for the lack of content on the podcast over the last 6 or 7 weeks. All sorts goes on in our lives. I have one that's recorded, but I'm still waiting for the go ahead to get that out. So what I've decided to do is I've got some guests lined up anyway, but with things as they are in our lives, it's very hard to actually sit and plan anything of great substance. And over the last few weeks, I've been thinking about music quite a lot. Pearl Jam have got a new album coming out. Did a review of their review and reaction video of their new song Dark Matter, which I think is actually really good. It's a song that's really grown on me, and I know a lot of people have felt the same. And we've got the new album coming out on April the 19th. So look for something to do with that around the time, because I will be doing something with that. And it's made me think about my influences over the years and where's my music influences come from and what are my favourite bands. So what I thought I would do is, obviously, the Scott's Big Mouth podcast is the long form arm of stuff that doesn't really fit into Scott Reviews Things. What I've done so far, I've done a review with Dave, I did a video with Blue Van Man, did a great one with Wanda at Christmas. I did one where I did some funny news. I've done other bits and pieces, and I want these all things to be slightly different. So this one's called "The Sounds of My Youth." What songs, what groups have followed my life, and how did I reach this position of liking these groups? So, when thinking about this, I've written some notes down. When you sit and write a podcast, you go through stages where, and it's been quite interesting for me. I just had a conversation with Wanda about it. Obviously, you look at the biggest influences on your life are your parents. What were their musical styles? What did they like? If you've got any siblings, what did they like as music? And your friends, as you go through life, what did they like? And how did those people influence your style of music and the things that you like? And you arrive as a near 49-year-old man liking the things you like. So I found it quite an interesting experience, and I'm hoping you're going to like the story I'm going to tell you, how I've got to like these bands, what's got me to this stage, and maybe you'll sit and reminisce about the bands you like, the music you like, and how you arrived at that sort of position in your life. Now, obviously, the biggest two influences you're ever going to have are your parents. Both of my parents are sadly no longer with us. A bit selfish, but they did their job. They brought me up to the standards you would expect. My mum, Christine, she wasn't I wouldn't say she was the most musical of women, but she certainly had an influence on the things that I listened to in my childhood. She liked Michael Jackson. She was a huge fan of Michael Jackson. She was the rebel within the family because she liked the Rolling Stones. Everyone else liked the Beatles. I know the Stones are huge and they always have been, but it was sort of a divide, like the Nirvana Pearl Jam divide or the Oasis Blur divide. She liked the Stones, and she liked to belt out their songs quite a lot. But she also liked people like Dr. Hook, travelling up and down the motorways with the 8-track cassette player in your car. We listened predominantly country music. When we were driving up and down the motorways with my parents, when we were going to either go and get my nan or go and see my family up in the Midlands, those were the influences that my mum had on me. Dr. Hook, We don't think we really listened to the Rolling Stones because Dad wouldn't have allowed it. And then every weekend on a Sunday, Mum would do the big clean of the house, and she would put on the War of the Worlds, the soundtrack, and that became a huge impact in my life. It every Sunday. I don't know how long. I don't know even know how long that album is, but I could tell you it note for note, word for word. Fantastic piece of orchestral masterpiece from Jeff Wayne, and it played a huge impact in my upbringing, and I'm sure my sister would agree. Also, another group that played a huge part in our lives was Queen. Queen was a huge sound in our house. It was not the Queen. That would be a bit weird. But Queen, Freddie Mercury, Roger Taylor, Brian May, John Deacon, just a fabulous group. And probably one of the biggest regrets in my life is I never got to see them live. I think they would have been absolutely phenomenal live. And then so those were the main real influences from my mum. And then I started thinking about my dad. Now, me and my dad never had the best of relationships. It was very awkward. He was away in the Navy for large portions of my life. When I was 14, my 14th birthday, he asked how old I was that year, which has always stayed with me. But sitting and thinking about this podcast, it really brought back to me how big an impact my dad had on my musical influences. Because he listened to all sorts. He liked things like chess, the stage musical, Phantom of the Opera. He was a huge fan that he'd play those sort of things. Barbara Dixon, um, Elaine Page, all those sort of things. He was a huge fan of those sort of things. And then also within that, he loved Bob Marley, UB40, Eddie Grant, the Eagles, Paul Simon. Paul Simon was constantly on his rotation. He was a huge fan of Genesis and Phil Collins. They were banging out morning, noon, and night. Paul Young, Blondie, and he liked his country as well, where we were driving up and down the roads. John Denver, Tammy Wynette, Dolly Parton, and all of these people. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he sort of developed a huge love of Van Morrison, which I could never understand, to be fair. So he had this huge range of musical styles that he would listen to. And obviously, as a child, you dismiss a lot of this, and then it's only when you grow into adulthood and you learn to appreciate some of this stuff that you realise that he wasn't probably the complete dickhead that you thought he might be. But there were three real influences musically that I've learned over my life that my dad bestowed on me. The first one of those was Dire Straits, Mark Knopfler. He used to play Brothers in Arms all the time. And some of the songs that Dire Straits have recorded over the years, Romeo and Juliet, Brothers in Arms, and some of their sort of lesser known tracks are absolutely fantastic. It's probably considered dad rock these days, but as I'm almost 49, I think I fall within that category quite well these days. So yeah, Dire Straits have just the Sultans of Swing, just a fantastic group, and they played a huge part in my dad's sort of musical musical influence on me. The other group of the three was Fleetwood Mac, and it's only in later life I've really began to appreciate what a fantastic band Fleetwood Mac. Obviously, sadly, the revolving door of people that have gone through Fleetwood Mac over the years. So it's probably not Fleetwood Mac anymore. Actually, me and Wanda went to see them a few years back at Wembley. Well, I think it was them. I mean, we were that far back at Wembley. It could have been anybody on that stage. They were like ants. But absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, we lost Christine McVie last year, which was very, very sad. But Stevie Nicks is one of the greatest female singers of my time. And yeah, Fleetwood Mac played a huge influence, and I didn't really learn to appreciate what influence they played on my life until a few years back, actually. And so me and Wanda went to see them, and they were fantastic, absolutely fantastic. We said they've got a great cover group as well called Fleetwood Mac that play down in Portsmouth, and we've seen them in Hayden Island in Portsmouth, and they're fantastic as well. Go Your Own Way, Don't Stop, Gypsy, Everywhere, which is a song that means a lot to Wanda and the girls. Just fantastic songs. I mean, their album Rumours is an incredible piece of art, really. And if there's a fantastic documentary, actually, that may well be on YouTube. If it is, go and search it out. The stuff that was going on in that band and the subjects that were written about and sung about by the people, that all sorts of going about. And when you learn of the stories that was going on in Fleetwood Mac at the time, it brings Rumours into even more context. It's a fantastic, fantastic album. And then the last of the three groups that my dad bestowed on me was one also that my mum loved, which was Queen. Queen played a huge part in our upbringing. The day that Freddie Mercury died was just horrendous. Was it Christmas Day or Christmas Eve? And then they had the Freddie Mercury tribute concert, and that played a huge part in my life, actually, because I was just beginning to go on to my next phase. I was about 15, 16 around that time, and that the bands that played there, I was beginning to just get into, and we'll get into that in a minute. But these three groups, through the listening, my dad had like a MIDI hi-fi system. Now, some of you guys out there, you're not going to even know what a MIDI hi-fi system is, but it was all the rage back in the day, and all of these three groups would constantly be playing through his MIDI hi-fi system, along with the other stuff that had a huge impact on my early musical listening. My mum was always a rebel. When people liked the Beatles, she liked the Stones and the heavier music. And then all of a sudden one day, a bit later on in life, she came out and said she liked the Black Eyed Peas, the KLF, and all this sort of thing. And she wasn't averse to some of the music that I listened to as well, because my mum although she never said a lot about music, she had an ear for the heavier, slightly more rebellious side of music. I've got a sister. Sadly, I have a bit of a fractured relationship with her, but she liked all sorts of stuff banging out from her bedroom constantly. Adam and the Ants. Obviously, my sister's 4 years older than me, so she's very much a child of the 80s musically, as was I, but she was far more progressed than I ever was in that time period. So Culture Club, Paul Young, Phil Collins, Aha, which I've only really come to appreciate as I've got older. Actually, I've got the lyrics to Take On Me here on my arm. Wham! And I could just go on and on. She used to just blare. The soundtrack from Grease was, it must have made my ears bleed at one point. It was just constant. So yeah, growing up in the 80s was fantastic. The first single I ever bought was by Casey and the Sunshine Band. A lot of you are not even going to know who Casey and the Sunshine Band is. In 1982, and I was 7, and it was Give It Up. If you've not heard it, then go and listen to it. It's a piece of musical history. I bought it. It was in a little the single on vinyl, little blue sort of pastel blue sleeve. I still remember it to this day. Absolutely fabulous. It probably got worn out on the record player. The first album I was ever really interested in was Now. That's what I call Music 6, or Now 6, as it was probably called in the time. And that was back in 1985. My dad bought it, and it was on a double cassette. A lot of you aren't going to know what cassettes are. You're so sort of used to downloading and CDs. But before CDs, we had vinyl and cassettes. And the cassettes, this had to go on a double cassette. So there was 2 cassettes because there was about 30 songs on there. And obviously you can't get that on one side of a cassette. So there was Now 6, and he bought that. I still remember he bought it from Woolworths. Sadly missed Woolworths. for a journey to go pick my nan up from Birmingham. Back in those days, it was a long journey for Portsmouth to Birmingham. We weren't quite in the motorway age, so he bought that to go to Birmingham and back, and it introduced me to artists and songs I'd never heard really. Queen was on there. One Vision, I'd obviously heard that. We were a Queen house. Fergal Sharkey, A Good Heart. The Eurythmics, There Must Be an Angel. Tina Turner, We Don't Need Another Hero. Jan Hammer and the Miami Vice tune theme. We didn't have access to MTV or Top of the Pops. So these sort of compilation albums were the only way that we got to hear these songs. Or on Radio 1. There wasn't the 160 million sort of radio stations there are now. So up until the age of 16, I had no real musical favourites. Queen, Fleetwood Mac. I wasn't really into Fleetwood Mac back in the day. But Queen played a huge part. Dire Straits I just thought was dad music. I listened to what my family listened to. And sort of just wasn't at all bothered musically by any style of music. So you're saying, so what changed? Well, it all changed at school. My last year in school, probably the last 6 months, and then going to college. I went to sixth form college, and whilst I was at school, the last couple of years at school, I met I knew of this kid, but a kid called Richard Kirby. And we didn't know him as Richard Kirby, we knew him as Reggie. And to this day, I still don't actually know why. Still don't know why he was called Reg or Reggie. But yeah, Reg. We became good friends, and he was the biggest influence on my musical life for about a year and a half, I suppose. Maybe a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. Sadly, I haven't seen him since leaving college, and I've often thought about him because his impact on my musical life has never been lost on me, and it changed my life. We used to go around his house, and he had a Sega, but his dad used to lock it. He used to lock it in this cupboard under the stairs so that Reggie couldn't play it. But we used to take the lock off the door and sit and play Sonic and Streets of Rage and all these games whilst because Reg had MTV, so we'd listen to the songs in the background whilst playing these games. And I remember one day he came. We were sat in, so you could just about squeeze two people into this little cupboard under the stairs where the Sega was, and we sat playing it, and all of a sudden the front door goes, and his dad comes in, and we're sat there, and we're scrambling trying to get the lock back on the door. He's caught us and gone absolutely fucking mad. But yeah, they were good times. As I say, they changed my musical outlook incredibly. I got to see bands and I heard songs that I'd never heard of before. Guns N' Roses, Extreme, Nirvana, Metallica, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Sonic Youth, Blur, Smashing Pumpkins, Green Day, and on and on and on and on. We had the Headbangers Ball on a Sunday night on MTV. We eventually got around to getting MTV, and we got Sky when it not long after, probably a year or so in, because I was a huge wrestling fan, and I kept nagging my mum and dad that I wanted Sky because I wanted to watch the wrestling and have MTV. And so once we finally got MTV, I could watch the Headbangers Ball and things like that. But before that came along, Reg was into Guns N' Roses hugely. Obviously, the Appetite for Destruction album was massive at the time, and they just released the Use Your Illusion albums 1 and 2, and they'd only just come out. And he made me a copy of them. He had them on tape, or did he have them on vinyl? I can't remember, but he made a copy of them and he put them onto tape for me and said, "Go and listen to them." And I kept refusing. I said, "Nah, it's not for me, mate. I'm not interested." Because he liked Guns N' Roses and liked Nirvana, but I wasn't interested at all. and I took the tape home and sort of lost it really, or just put it to the side and never. I had a cassette player sort of thing. I don't know if I had a vinyl player or not, a record player, and I can't remember, but I do remember I had a double cassette thing, so I could tape to tape. Again, a lot of people are not going to know what tape to tape is, and I set it aside. I'm not going to listen to it, and then I decided I liked Def Leppard out of nowhere. When I say I liked Def Leppard, I liked one song, and that song was "Do You Want to Get Rocked." I'm going to try and play some of these songs if I can, without getting this demonetised. I don't really care if it is, to be fair. But yeah, Def Leppard, "Do You Want to Get Rocked" played a huge part because I thought, yeah, this is good, when it really wasn't. See if we can play a bit. Hang on, 2 seconds. I should have lined all this up, but you know, "Do You Want to Get Rocked"? Def Leppard, "Do You Wanna Get Rocked"? No, it's not Rocket. Or is it Get Rocked? I don't know. Get Rocked. Let's get rocked. So that was a song that I was like, yeah, they are the group for me. Def Leppard. Loved the video on MTV, so I bought the album. Tried to convince myself this is the band I like, but I didn't. And I was trying to convince myself that I like this group, but the more I listened to it, I thought it's not got. And I'm sorry to any Def Leppard fans out there. It's not got the edge, not the edge, the guitar player from U2. It hasn't got the edge I'm looking for as an album. There's something missing from this group, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. But I'm still keeping up this pretense to Reg that I like this, and he could see that I was lying. But then I'm a stubborn sod, and I kept up the pretense. And at the same time, or around that same time, I thought, well, let's give. And he's playing the Guns N' Roses stuff, and I'm like, nah, I'm adamant. I'm not gonna like them. So I'm going home, and I think I've got my Sega. I thought I'll play Guns N' Roses whilst I'm playing my Sega, and then I started listening to them, and then I'd fall asleep listening to them. These songs were getting into my head, and they're ringing in my ears, and I'm waking up singing these songs: "Locomotion," "Coma," "Get in the Ring," "November Rain," and the song that really did it for me, which was "Oh, you could be mine," the soundtrack to Terminator 2, and that song was my song. I loved the riff from Slash, and something clicked. Something clicked with Guns N' Roses. And when I told him, he was just over the moon. So I've gone from Def Leppard, who I just felt were too manufactured, and the sound wasn't it wasn't raw enough for me, to Guns N' Roses, who were just the fucking rebels at the time. And yeah, that's what changed my listening, really, Guns N' Roses. And then he was onto a mission. Was Reg? His next mission was Nirvana, and again, I wasn't interested. That would change later on, actually, because I ended up really liking Nirvana, and obviously what happened to Kurt Cobain and everything was absolutely terrible, but not on the extent that I like Guns N' Roses. Nirvana were cool, but there was another band that caught my eye, and it never left. And we're going to get onto that, which I guess brings me really to my five biggest musical influences, band-wise, from my youth, and they're probably still here today. One of them isn't around anymore, which is sad. I haven't written this down actually. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, they five biggest influences, and how I got to these bands. So the first band that musically really influenced me and still love to this day, and it's a band that I've mentioned earlier on through an influence through my mum and dad, was Queen. So number five is Queen. Queen, just the the diverse nature of the songs from Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. It's the stuff that people probably don't know. The stuff that's on the greatest hit albums that sits alongside some of the greatest songs they've ever released. Day at the Races, A Night at the Opera. Some of the albums are absolutely tremendous, but obviously the songs that people really navigate to and sort of go towards a Bohemian Rhapsody, which is the first rock orchestra, really. Opera, sorry. You've got Radio Gaga, One Vision. I've always liked Hammer to Fall. There's some absolutely fabulous Queen songs that just they define. I think the sense of a group is groups that defy time, and songs that sort of defy time. And I think Queen sit into that really, really hugely. Just an absolutely wonderful band that I know there's some great documentaries on Queen and what happened within that band over the years, and obviously the the promiscuity that's gone on in with Freddie. But the music stands the test of time. It really does. They're a fantastic group, and they're a group that really I would have loved to have seen live. One of my greatest regrets, I said it earlier, is that they're a group I never got to see, which is sad. But I'm not sure I'd want to go and see the one who sings with them now, Paul Lambert. I'm not interested. It's not Queen. It's not Queen without Freddie Mercury for me. So yeah, number five, Queen, introduced by my mum and well, not the Queen, but yeah, introduced to me musically by my mum and dad. Just fantastic. Number four, and I don't know how I got into this. I don't know how I got into this group. And I am going to play some of their songs because they don't get played enough. And this is a group. I went through a stage where the group that's at number two, which we'll get to when we get to number two, I was looking for stuff that sounded similar. And then I think they must have come on MTV. And from that moment, I was absolutely hooked. And that group is Terrorvision. And they're currently touring at the moment. It's so you probably never heard of Terrorvision. They're from Bradford, and they were just fun, a fun group that made some. You probably know the song Tequila. I can play that now. Let me play that. So you got Tequila. Tequila put them on the map. I think that was Chris Evans and TFI Friday, and he put a lot of groups on the map. Did Chris Evans, and it might well have been him. It would have been before that. But yeah, Tequila. But they had an album called How to Make Friends and Influence People. And I think it was probably Alice, What's the Matter, that probably first got me. So it's either that or Oblivion. So another song called Oblivion, off of the same album, How to Make Friends and Influence People. But they were just fun, just mental fun. Tony Wright, their lead singer, and just their front man, just an absolute joy to watch. So their albums range. They've gone from they had How to Make Friends and Influence People albums. Whales and Dolphins, which was it's like a rarity thing, I think, or a greatest hits. But yeah, Regular Urban Survivors, which was a concept album that was like set up like James Bond and absolutely fantastic. Album called Formaldehyde, Shaving Peaches, Good to Go, which was released in 2001, which has a fantastic song, Fists of Fury. And then they released an album out of nowhere in 2011 called Super Deluxe, which is actually really, really good. There's some absolutely cracking songs on there. One being, what should I go for? I could go for Hold Tight. Oh, that was Hold Tight, sorry. Oh, there's no lyrics on this one. The only thing I don't like about Super Deluxe is the mix of the album. The mix of the album is a bit heavy on the guitars, so you can't actually. Sometimes it's hard to pick out Tony Wright, and I think that's a bit sad. But the album itself is really, really good. So yeah, Terrorvision. Just I've seen them so many times. They're actually in Southampton on the 14th of April, but the tickets are £28, and I just thought that was a bit excessive. But we'll get on to tickets a little bit later because there's one group that have really pissed me off. So number 4 in the music. What's it called? What we call this podcast? The Sounds of My Youth is Terrorvision. And number 3, I've spoken about them already, is Guns N' Roses. Had a huge love of the proper Guns N' Roses. Axl Rose, Slash, Izzy Stradlin, Duff McKagan, Matt, I can't remember his fucking name that used to be on the drums, Matt. Yeah. They were fantastic. The Use Your Illusion albums, the Appetite for Destruction album, just Lies, just phenomenal. I played a huge part. I know they're touring at the moment, but Axl Rose at the moment, he sounds like Mickey Mouse off his tits on alcohol. It's really sad to see. It's really sad to see a group that really should be knocking it on the head now because the lead singer he ain't got it anymore. But Guns N' Roses, you can't, whether you like Guns N' Roses or not, you can't actually deny their place in musical history. I think they've got a huge part to play. Knocking on Heaven's Door. As I said, the song that always got me was You Could Be Mine. You've got Patience. I haven't got patience. You've got patience. Paradise City, Welcome to the Jungle. Just phenomenal songs. Songs that really don't really need any introduction. I said this is going to be demonetised all over the place. I don't really care. Guns N' Roses, essentials. Sweet Child. I mean the opening riff probably sends shivers through certain people. But you got that Paradise City. Civil War's another. I mean, a phenomenal song. What else have we got? Don't Cry, Mr. Brownstone, Civil War, It's So Easy, Estranged is another rock opera. 14 Years. I've always like Get in the Ring. Just phenomenal. And a genuine place in rock stardom history. Guns N' Roses for not being the nicest people. And I know Axl and Slash fell out for years, but just a tremendous group. So number 3. Number two is going to be no surprise to anybody that's watched this channel for any sort of time. I've got T-shirts. I've got a long history with this group, and it's the Wildhearts. I don't know what incarnation the Wildhearts are in actually these days, because they've split up. There's been a bit like Fleetwood Mac. There's been a revolving door of cast members with the Wildhearts. Lead singer Ginger Wildheart is the most prolific songwriter in Britain that you've probably never heard of. Just a tremendous, and I mean tremendous, songwriter, and just knocks songs out almost for fun, it would seem. What do I class the Wildhearts? The first time I heard the Wildhearts, I worked at Nerden and Peacock, cash and carry, from the age of 16 to 24. And one Sunday, I was in the tobacco area of Nerden and Peacocks. I don't know if it was Booker's then or Nerden and Peacocks. I'm sure it was still Nerden and Peacocks. And they had a radio on in there, and they were playing the Sunday Top 40. And the song Sucker Punch by the Wildhearts came on. And I was like, who's that? And I got the way through the song. It's not a long song, so it didn't take long. And I was like, I need to find out who this group is, and I need to find out now. So it gets to the end of it, and it's like, this is Sucker Punch by the Wildhearts. And I was like, have they got an album? So I was up to MTV. I was up to HMV the next morning, scouring through, trying to find the Wildhearts, and I found Earth versus the Wildhearts. Let's play a bit of Sucker Punch first. It just blew me away. Sucker Punch blew me away. So I picked up Earth vs. the Wildhearts, and what an album! What an album that is! It was everything that I wanted, and I don't know, and I can't remember. Earth vs. the Wildhearts. I can't remember which came first, chicken or the egg. I can't remember what came first. The Wildhearts or my number one group. I think it's my number one group, but I don't think there was a great deal in it. So Earth versus the Wildhearts, track listing. Greetings from Shitsville, TV Tan, Everlone, Shame on Me, Love Shit. Love Shit is a wonderful song. The Miles Away Girl, My Baby is a Head Fuck, Sucker Punch, News of the World, Drinking About Life, and Love You Till I Don't. I'm going to give a shout out actually to somebody. He won't watch this, sadly, but we had a conversation about it. Chris the Butcher, who is a Wildhearts fan, but he has one song, and it was the Miles Away Girl. Just crunching riffs. And they just that album was on. I got it was a CD. I had a little Walker pocket CD player that you had to carry around like that because the fucking thing would skip all over the place. But that album was in there all the time, literally all the time. It was an incredible. And then they released PHUQ Fuck, which had I Want to Go Where the People Go, which was a fucking brilliant song. There's some. It was originally going to be a double album. Then they did Fishing for Luckies, which was a fan only thing with an incredible. I've still got them all on CD. Fishing for Luckies. Which had an album of just rotten fruit. I don't think you've ever seen that. But then they just a fantastic just a fantastic group, and they were everything I wanted. Tuneful, they had a bite. They went to the Krang office and fucking destroyed it. They were everything I was looking for in a musical group. Sing along, chugging riffs. They had a little bit of fucking character about them, and I just fell in love with them. Seen them. I've got to seen them 20 odd times over the years. Doesn't sound a lot, but they don't come south very often. They split up. I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. Got back together recently. They split up again. Apparently, there's a new incarnation of them again. With I think Ginger is the only surviving member of the original group of him, CJ, Rich Battersby, Danny, and it's sad. It's a sad situation. Should make a song about that. But yeah, the Wildhearts. If you've not heard anything from the Wildhearts, go and listen to them. Go and find them. And if you like your music tuneful and heavy, you're gonna fucking love them. And they've led me on to the Massive Wagons recently, and a lot of other groups. But the Wildhearts have stayed with me since I first heard Sucker Punch, and just phenomenal. So number 5, we've got Queen. Number 4, Terrorvision. Number 3, Guns N' Roses. Number 2, the Wildhearts. And it's going to be no shock to tell you my number 1 group that's been with me since I first heard them when I was 16 years old, back in 1991. And that is Pearl Jam. Just a phenomenal group over the years. You had Nirvana that were cool and the real rebels, and then you had Pearl Jam that was slightly sneered on by some of the grunge lot as not being grunge and slightly manufactured. Obviously, you had Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard come from the remnants of Mother Love Bone after Andrew Wood killed himself. They got called careerists, but they put this band together with Eddie Vedder, Mike McCready, and Dave Crewson at the time, I think was the drummer. And they made 10, and I remember the first song I didn't hear. I'd probably heard alive, but it hadn't actually registered with me. And I remember one day being at home, and I heard a song came on MTV, and I'm like, what's that? So watching it, obviously MTV at the time, it showed you what it was, and it was Even Flow. And Even Flow really was a song that changed my life. Pearl Jam. I'm sure you must have heard Even Flow. If you haven't, you've been under a rock, or you weren't born, because Even Flow's 33 years old. So, but still stands the taste. Still stands the test of time. Song you wouldn't think this album's 33 years old. Remember, I'd heard Even Flow, and I was like, what's the album? What is it? So I find out it's called 10. I didn't have the money at 16. I didn't have the money to go and buy it. But my aunt was down with her boyfriend at the time, a guy called Ray, and he lent me the money to go and buy it. And never got on with Ray, but to be fair, the respect I have for that man, because he changed my life. He changed my life. And I went and bought that album. I stuck it in my CD player, and it never left. It never left. It was on rotate all the time. I used to walk to college. I could tell you my route to college, where I would be from the songs that were on 10. I could probably still do it now. You had Even Flow, you had Once, Alive, Why Go, Black, Jeremy. Jeremy won a lot of awards, and then it was a waiting game to see what they would do with their second album, and it was a 2-year wait. And that was a long 2 years. It was a long 2 years to wait for something new. And then Versus came, and Versus blew me away even more. A little bit more stripped back, and the songs on there were just probably my favourite album of any band that I've ever got. was Versus. I'll show you what the album cover. I'll put it on the screen anyway. But Versus was incredible. The opening to Versus, so with Go, Animal, Daughter, Glorified G, Dissident, White Male American, Blood, and Rearview Mirror. Rearview Mirror was fantastic. Actually, just before Versus came out, Pearl Jam were touring, and me and Reg went to see them in Brixton, and they played some of the songs, and they played Rearview Mirror, and it said it's a song that you listen to loudly driving away from somebody you hate. It's a song about suicide, and it's a fucking incredible song. What a song that means a lot to Wanda, and it's become a huge staple of Pearl Jam's set list. 12 out. They've got their 12th album coming out on April the 19th. So first album was 10, then Versus, Vitalogy, No Code, Binaural, Yield, Binaural, Riot Act, the Avocado album, Backspacer, Lightning Bolt, Gigaton, and now we've got Dark Matter coming out. But the song that always stuck with me was Corduroy. Corduroy's been my song. It's been my song since for as long as I can remember, and it just, I don't know what it is. The first time I heard this song, it just got me, and I've never understood really why. It's just a song that it's always been my song, my favourite song from the day one that I've heard it. I liked Pearl Jam because they were a bit different. They're probably classed again like dad rock these days, actually. But then again, I fit within that sphere these days of dad rock. I'm hoping their new album's going to be good. Their ticket prices, they took Ticketmaster to court over what they were charging their fans, and then they released the dates for this new tour, and the tickets are just ridiculously priced. So, and I know it's pissed a lot of people off, which saddens me when you got multi-millionaires that end up sort of taking the piss out of their client base and the people that have put them where they are. It does annoy you, but I can't say that that group hasn't influenced my life. I've got 2 Pearl Jam tattoos. I've got one here, you can see that, and which is also for a heartbeat for Leah. I've got one on my leg as well, of the Alive Stickman. They've played an enormous part in my life, really. So yeah, those are the 5 bands and the story of my musical journey that I've been through with my life. And those are the 5 bands that really have stuck with me: Queen, Terrorvision, Guns N' Roses, Wildhearts, and Ginger as a whole, and Pearl Jam. Absolutely phenomenal. So what music? It begs the question, doesn't it? What music style and is the influences on your lives? Who's influenced you musically? What do you have the same musical influences as your parents or your siblings, or did you rebel slightly? Who was the groups that have shaped your life? Hope you've enjoyed this. I've quite enjoyed it. I had some notes, but I've waffled on for about 50 odd minutes, as I tend to do when you get going. What the fucking hell's that over there? I don't know what that is. So yeah, Pearl Jam, the Wildhearts, Guns N' Roses, Terrorvision, and Queen, the groups that have modelled my life to make me the man I am today. You're welcome. Hope you've enjoyed Scott's Big Mouth podcast. I've enjoyed doing it. Hopefully it won't be so long to the next one. It's available on all of the, wherever you get your podcasts, really. Apple, Deezer, Google, all of the above, and some that probably aren't. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it won't be so long. If you like this and you're watching it on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. You don't give it a thumbs down. There's a subscribe button to Scott Reviews Things over there. And I'll see you very soon.